I'm Dana Denta, and you're watching FYI. Earth Day is a time to reflect on the impact we make on the planet that provides life and sustenance to all of us. Every year, the city hosts a festival for Mother Earth to teach everyone how to keep her blossoming.
We've got partners from all over the city that work in ecological practices, coming together to talk to folks about how to better support our Earth.
The legacy of Earth Day really started here in Ann Arbor, which is something that I think a lot of us hold true and really find special. So there's actually a community of people who come together to make Earth Day happen every year. It's environmental nonprofits in the area and the city who work together. And we feel like it's really important because there's a lot of businesses working on the environment in our city and around our city.
There's always new science, there's always new daily practices that people could bring into their lives to make changes to support our environment.
So we have lots of activities for kids, everything from mixing and matching games, learning how to recycle, learning what it means to grow your own food, plants that they can plant themselves and take home.
Behind me, you can see our nature playscape, which is a playground, but it's made of natural materials. You could climb up the rocks, you could climb up the sticks, you could pump the water and dam it up or let it go, and you can make decisions about how you're interacting with the world around you in a very hands-on, experiential way.
The 2025 Ann Arbor Earth Day Festival will be held at Leslie Science and Nature Center on Sunday, April 27th from 1 to 4:30 p.m. For more, visit a2earthday.org. Stay tuned, and we'll be back with more in exactly 30 seconds. In the event of an emergency, city personnel continually keep up to date on safety protocols. Watch as the Ann Arbor Fire Department trains to combat dangerous fire emergencies. The AAFD worked in conjunction with Oakland Community College to learn the best methods to extinguish flashover fires.
This training teaches firefighters fire behavior, and they actually experience a flashover, which is the combustion of all of the contents in the room at a single time. So this is a flashover in a controlled environment.
Inside the training trailer, firefighters will learn the warning signs to these life-threatening fire emergencies.
A flashover is where a compartment within the fire building, everything catches on fire at the same time. So once we reach a flashover, if firefighters are in there, our gear will start to fail, our air packs will start to fail. Some pre-flashover conditions are a significant change of heat. The smoke will start to become very thick, visibility will decrease, and there'll also be what are called fingers of fire that'll start to move across the ceiling. The best thing that somebody can do to prevent a fire death in your house is make sure you've got working smoke detectors. The other thing we recommend is make sure that you have an escape plan.
To safeguard road workers, traffic laws and fines are stricter in construction zones. Learn more about work zone safety in this month's City Roundup.
I'm Sergeant Mark Pulford with the Ann Arbor Police Department. I'm here today to talk about work zone safety. We all know, living in Michigan, that construction season, it's pretty much endless. So we want to give you some tips to stay safe while you're out on the roadway this season. The first one is to slow down. There's a reason that speed limits are reduced in construction zones. It's to protect the workers. Second one, be alert. Never drive distracted. There's always changing roadway conditions, so you want to make sure that you're alert. Next one is to give the workers some space in construction zones. They work in very close proximity to the roadway into cars. Give them that extra space, and please be patient. The last tip that we have is to follow the detours, the roadway markings. I know it can get confusing in construction zones sometimes, but follow the signs, follow the markings on the roadway. That's why they're there. Those are the tips that we have for today. I want to thank you for listening, and stay safe, Ann Arbor.
Having children opens a whole new can of worms to worry about, like diaper rash ointments, baby-proofing the house, and picking the right car seat model. But when it comes to car seats, it's about so much more than the seat itself. The installation is key. And Michigan has just enacted new laws that took effect April 2nd that will change the way we travel with kids. Joining me is Josh Terebelo, attorney at Michigan Auto Law. Welcome to the show, Josh.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, can you tell me what sort of were we working with prior to these new laws? Because honestly, some of the laws I thought were already laws, but I think I was mistaken.
So, in actuality, what was in place before really wasn't the law. There actually wasn't specifications about where kids had to be, what type of seat they had to be in, the direction. Really, the only thing that was necessary is that they were secured. But in terms of what type, what direction, how long they can be there, that actually wasn't put into place until today. So, the law has actually now come in line with other states throughout the country and the recommendations from the National Highway Traffic Safety Association.
So can we sort of just get a brief overview of what is happening on April 2nd and what we should expect as parents? Because this actually goes across like the gamut from your newborns all the way up to like a 15-year-old.
Yeah, so there's actually now specific requirements. There's specific requirements in place as to what type of seat your child has to be in, the way that they're supposed to be fastened. The first thing is rear-facing seats. From 0 to 2, they have to be in a rear-facing seat. And there's some exceptions, and we can go over that in a bit. But for all intents and purposes, from 0 to 2, they have to be in a rear-facing seat. Going from 2 to 5, they can be in a forward-facing seat. From 5 to 8, they can be in a booster seat. From 8 to 13, they can be seated without a booster in the back. From 13 to 16, they can be seated in the front or the back. And then from 16 forward, they can be seated in the front only, or the back only, wherever you want to have them. When they're in a booster seat, they still have to be strapped. When with a seatbelt, if they're in the front seat, they always have to be wearing a seatbelt. Same thing in the back. And ironically, they no longer have to wear a seatbelt in the back seat after the age of 16, but we would still always recommend that they do so. But
well, that was actually one of the things I was like, when I was reading it, I was like, okay, so obviously we as adults are required to wear a seatbelt in the front seat of a car. And so that would take everyone who's in the front seat of the car has to wear a seatbelt. So we're still not required after the age of 16 to wear a seatbelt in the back, but obviously we all know we should.
That's correct. For whatever reason, what the law only states is that you have to wear a seatbelt in the front seat. But I can tell you this, when my kids are over the age of 16, they will still be wearing seatbelts no matter if they're in the front or the back.
Well, it seems a little wild to have all these precautions and then all of a sudden they're 16 and be like, don't buckle.
Right. All of a sudden they say that we don't have to protect you, where up to that point we did. But no, yeah. I mean, that part has certainly fallen behind in other areas. Kids should always be wearing a seatbelt, no matter the front, the back, they always need to be strapped in. Everyone should.
Oh, totally. And I don't know about you, but like if I were to sit in a car, like I think I did sit in the back recently because I couldn't get my seatbelt in because there was a car seat blocking it. And I felt very uncomfortable and dangerous sitting in the back seat without a seatbelt on.
Yeah, wearing a seatbelt reduces your risk of injury or death, depending on the circumstance, by over 50%. It's a very simple thing to do and can save you from some very serious harms or even worse.
Well, let's break down some of these laws a little clearer. So the one for 2 and under is probably one of the real big ones because I do see a lot of people will turn their car seats around at what I feel like is too early. And my kid right now is a little over 2. He's still rear facing, so I'm not in a rush.
You know, the interesting thing about the statistic is if you're not following what these rules are, according to Michigan Office of Highway Safety Planning, if God forbid you're involved in a serious collision, the risk of death increases by 50% if they're not properly strapped. If you are between 0 and 2, your child must be in a rear-facing seat. The only exception to that is if they're higher than the weight and height requirements, because then the seat won't be as safe for them, in which case they would go turning forward. But most kids will not get there between 0 and 2. So they always need to be rear facing. They always need to be appropriately fastened into the seat.
What do you know offhand? What is that height and weight?
It's actually based upon the manufacturer.
Okay, so
Um,
it's you'd have to look at whatever your car seat is, and it comes with a booklet, and you'd have to figure it out that way.
Correct. The only specific height requirement is you don't have to be in a booster seat if you're over 4 feet 9. But no, so each manufacturer, because it's a certain type of seat that they're making, and keep in mind the majority of them have to be approved, but they will have the specific height and weight requirements. But really, your child from 0 to 2 should be in a rear-facing seat.
Yeah, I can't imagine unless you have some baby giant or something that just doesn't fit in the seat anymore.
Right, right.
But the other thing we were sort of talking about, which is the way the car seat buckles, is that are car seats required to buckle a certain way? Because I know like every car seat that I've had for my younger children always had a 5-point harness, which feels much safer than just like going over your shoulders and strapping right into the middle of you.
So there's not a specific one, but the thing is that what the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration actually does, it has a list of types of car seats that are approved and types of car seats that have been recalled. So you want to make sure that yours is approved. You want to make sure that yours isn't damaged. And if it's going to be on that list, it's going to be approved. But yeah, it should be a 5-point over the shoulders, buckled in the middle. My youngest, who just got out of a rear-facing seat, that was the type that he was in. So yeah, it's going to be a 5-point. It's going to be over the shoulders. It's going to be buckled. But you can always check with that list, make sure that yours isn't on the recall, the damage, or ones that you shouldn't be using.
Well, I've also always heard, while we're talking about these young kids, that if you are to get in a car accident with a car seat, that you need to replace that car seat.
Absolutely. Because, you know, if it's damaged, you may not see what the actual damage is. Because really we only see the exterior, but there's metal that's underneath. There's metal which can be bent, and the whole point is to keep them appropriately secured. And if you have something which is damaged, it's much easier to break. And I understand that car seats, they can be expensive. There's no doubt that they can be expensive, but there is nothing there's nothing more important than your child safety. There's simply nothing. And so if you're involved in a collision, yeah, the safe thing to do is replace it.
What about, when my kids are sort of have like a little distance in age. So my daughter's like 6.5 years older than my son. So when I had him, I still had her infant car seat. I actually recycled it because its expiration date was passed. What about the thoughts on that? I felt very uncomfortable with it, but I do feel like other parents feel a little looser with it when I talk to them. And some people even try to give away those car seats or sell them. I had a neighbor that I was like, you need to get rid of these car seats. I would not give them to another person.
Yeah, that you're 100% right here is look, if you're using a car seat that's past the expiration, there's a reason that it's past the expiration. It's not safe. The technology and the way that they're being made is always advancing for safety purposes. What was safe 5 years ago is not going to be as safe as what is made now. And so, yes, they can be expensive. There's no doubt that they can be expensive, but there's nothing more important than your kid's safety. So that's why you always need to be looking as to whether or not something was recalled. If there's an expiration, do not use those. Or really, if it's hard to use a hand-me-down or someone else's for that reason.
What about your thoughts? And I know this isn't the law, but this is something that I've heard. I actually have a nurse that told me that she kept her kids rear facing much longer than that 2-year mark. What are your thoughts on that? Do you know anything safety wise about like if there is an accident, they're over that 2-year mark? Like I said, I haven't done it yet. I haven't turned mine around yet.
Is there any harm in being in a rear-facing seat longer than the 2 years? No, as long as you're not outside of the manufacturer's requirements.
Hmm.
So if your kid still falls within it and you feel that it's safer, no one's telling you you're not permitted to do that. But if your child is no longer within the requirements, that's where you're being presented an issue because then the safety mechanisms that are in place aren't there anymore. Should you turn your child around after the age of 2? You should, because that's what the recommendation is. But you just do all people? No, they don't, because I certainly understand why someone may feel that rear facing is safer than forward facing. But you have to fall within the requirements of the actual car seat that you're using. The second that you're out of it, do not continue it in that method.
Yeah, yeah, totally. What about this kids under 8 thing where they have the booster seats and there are different types of booster seats too. I assume any is fine for the new law, but I'd like you to talk about the booster seats and then the age and the height factor aspects of it.
Yeah, sure. So the booster seat is your booster seat essentially could be your forward-facing seat, but it's the way that it's going to be strapped in is going to be different because a forward-facing seat is still the way to appropriately do it is likely going to be going over both shoulders, buckled in the middle, and then going to the outside. So a booster seat after the age of 5 is really where you're sitting in an elevated seat with a seatbelt that is appropriately fastened going from over one shoulder into the actual clip. That is essentially what a booster seat is. But you can't be in that booster seat strapped in that way until you're after the age of 5, or if your child has outgrown the height or weight requirements. So that's kind of where you go from there. And the only requirement to get out of a booster seat before then is the manufacturer's requirements, or if your child gets over 4'8", you will have a very big 8-year-old at that point. But if you do, they don't need to be in a booster seat because again, it's the same thing. If your child is elevated higher than they should be, they're no longer in the safer position.
Well, my 8-year-old is always wanting to not be in her booster, and I'm like, well, you're only like 4'2". And I'm like, it's like you're supposed to be like almost 5 foot at this point to get to not be sitting in it. Because like to me, it's not the height is more important than the age to me. That's how I feel about it.
Oh, absolutely. So my 7-year-old who's about to turn 8, we still have her in the same forward-facing seat, but now it's a booster.
Hmm.
The majority of her friends are in just a booster seat that seems to be lower than hers. She doesn't care. She's happy in her seat, and I feel that it's safe for her. For her, she's still within the requirements, and I'm going to keep her in that as long as it's safe for her. Because at the end of the day, more protection for my daughter is better than less protection.
Totally. So let's talk about this kids 13 and under. My mom actually brought this to my attention. I didn't tell her I was interviewing anyone about this, and she was like, I let the granddaughters that are 12, I believe, sit in the front seat now. And she's like, I'm not allowed to anymore. And so why is that? Even if it's a height, I mean, these girls are tall. They're taller than me. Why does a 13-year-old have to be in the back seat now?
So
Or
it's
13 and under 13.
under 13. Well, because don't forget the airbags in the front are designed for certain heights. And it's also the development of the child and all that. All of that, if you're hit by an airbag wrong, can also cause serious injuries. At the end of the day, what the studies here have shown is that following these precautions can reduce the risk of death, which is the most severe. It can reduce the risk of death by 50%.
Hmm.
So there's numerous studies. There's numerous studies, and it's the safety of the kid. And after the age of 8, they do not need to be in a booster seat anymore. They can just be seated in the back seat with a seatbelt on, which goes over for the front of their chest, not one of the seatbelts that connects at the waist. It needs to go over their chest to buckle them in. But, and the reason for it is just because you are over 8 doesn't mean that you are where you should be hit by a front-facing airbag. The majority of collisions are coming to the front of the car, whether they're head-on or T-bowed towards the front. And so that's why the airbags are configured differently up there. And getting hit in the face with an airbag is very different than getting hit in the chest with an airbag.
Well, and the law also states, if you have a full car, you can have someone under 13 in the front seat. Talk about that part of it. And there is mention of turning off the airbags where they're sitting.
It is a very big hassle to do, but that
I
is
didn't
the
even
way
know.
to
I'm like,
go.
can you do it? I don't know how to. I have no idea.
Um, there's never going to be a circumstance where I will ever allow that to happen.
Yeah.
For that reason, airbags are designed to protect people. And if my son or daughter is not supposed to be in the front seat, I'm not going to put them in the front seat. It's much easier to take two cars than risk anyone's safety.
hmm Yeah. So, I mean, they're saying obviously you could be put in a situation like that, but you're saying if there's any other option, take it. Don't turn your
Absolutely.
airbags off.
Look, there's exceptions for everything, and there's exceptions for all of these rules that we're talking about. There's built-in exceptions for all of them, but that there's a reason that it's an exception and not
hmm
a rule.
Yeah.
There's exceptions depending on the type of car that you're in. There's exceptions, for example, are you ever really going to put a 13-year-old on a motorcycle? Well, if you do, they don't have to wear a suit, they don't have to wear a seatbelt, but there's an exception for that. Same
hmm
thing about a moped. Same thing about a taxi. You could put a 13-year-old in a taxi. I'm sorry, a 12-year-old in a taxi and or an 8-year-old in a taxi, and they won't have to be buckled. They won't have to be, they won't have to be in a booster. But is that the safest way? No, it's not. But there's always built-in exceptions for extreme circumstances, but usually there's a way out of that extreme circumstance too that is
Yeah.
safer.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you 100%. I'm just trying to cover all bases of
Yeah.
this law. I would not put my 8-year-old in the front seat if I had, a 2, a 3, and a 4-year-old in the back. I wouldn't put her in the front. I just wouldn't leave then. I just wouldn't go to the place.
Exactly, exactly.
I mean, have we touched all the aspects of this new law, do you feel?
So, we've touched on a lot of them. There's a couple things which I think we should go over. The first is actually installing. The
Well,
first is
so that was going
actually,
to be my next question. I didn't know if that was part of the law, but I do think that is a big thing. I honestly will tell you the truth. I do not feel comfortable installing the car seat, and I make my husband do it. I'm like, I don't know if it's the responsibility of it. It just scares me to be the one to do it.
I will tell you, I know how to install a car seat, and I still always get it double checked. And the reason for that is that it's not easy to get it in correctly. There are specific places that you can go to. You just need to go to the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, and on that, they actually have free places where you can go to have car seat, and the majority of them are like fire stations, things like that. Um, but free places that you can go to that they will install the car seat for you, and they will also teach you the appropriate way to do it. My mother, love her to death, will not install the car seats because she does not feel that she can get it done correctly. So we always help with it, or she will go to the fire station to do it. But there's free places that will help you do it. Make sure that it's done correctly.
Yeah, I think one of the big things that I've noticed at my own, even when he installs it, is that, and it was more in his car than mine, but the car does matter. It's
Of
some
course,
cars are easier to install than others.
absolutely.
And I always felt like he couldn't, in his old car, he couldn't tighten it enough. Like you're like tightening, I mean, you're using your legs, your arms
Yep.
to pull this thing as tight as you can on this hook in the back.
Yep. Frankly, I feel the same way about my car compared to my wife's car. I have not, since we got my car seats put in, I have not uninstalled them for that reason
Yeah, because you're like,
because,
I don't want to take them out because I'm basically going to have to take them somewhere to get them
right,
checked and tightened because
right.
it's just like so hard to do. Yes.
Yeah, but for whatever reasons, the ones in my wife's car tightens much easier than the ones in mine.
Yeah, you wonder if just like certain cars are like, okay, these cars are for families more than, I don't know.
Well,
I don't know what
well,
the thought process. I wish they were all as easy to install.
they're not all made with the same metal. That's not all bent the same way, but you
Yeah.
still have to go through those same hooks at the end. So yeah, there's just those little differences though do make it harder to install, which is why you should always bring it to those places that will do it for free and make sure that it's done correctly.
Yeah, I mean, I think I really agree with you. I think that's great advice. You don't want to be responsible for your kid getting injured in the car because you didn't want to take a quick stop to have someone just double check your work.
Exactly. Now, the one thing which I will say though is that the penalties on this need to actually catch up to the severity of what we're talking about. We're talking about child safety, and the penalties on this, if your child is not seated correctly or not in the appropriate type of seat, is less than a ticket for not wearing your seatbelt, which is crazy. It is 10 to $20 depending on your infraction. 10 to $20. That is all that it is. It's less than double parking. It's less than putting your seatbelt on. The only additional fines that you can get are court costs. And that is crazy how minimal these fines are if you're not following the basic safety for your kids.
Really, I never even thought about the fines. All I was worried about was that I was doing the right thing by my kids.
Yeah.
I don't want to get caught doing the wrong thing because I just want them to be as safe as possible. I find that wild that like I got a parking ticket in Royal Oak that costs more than that.
Well, I mean, think about it. We had to put laws in place to make sure that people would wear their seatbelt, right?
Yeah.
And yet they weren't doing it before. Is it safer to wear your seatbelt? Of course, and everyone knows that. But not everyone's doing it. And so you have to put laws in place for it. But then the laws in place to make sure that adults are appropriately fastened into their seat is more expensive than your child, who is younger, not making the decisions themselves for the majority of them, and frankly, more fragile. So it's that part certainly needs to catch up with the severity of what the law is supposed to be protecting.
Well, Josh, before we go, do you have any advice you'd like to give about these laws and buckling your kids properly?
Yeah, follow the law. That's the best advice that I can give. And I know that it's easy to say, and I know sometimes it takes a few extra minutes, but this is the safest way for your child to travel. And that is the most important thing. It does not cost you anything extra to get them installed right. Um, your kids are not the ones that are making the decisions. So just make sure that you're doing the safest thing for them. Because at the end of the day, you don't want to be put in a situation where, God forbid, something different should have happened. They should have been seated a different way. And then the repercussions from that. Just very basic things to protect your children. So that's the biggest advice that I can. Slow down, drive defensively. Everyone should be doing that and protect your kids.
All right, well, thank you so much. I'm really glad to know more about these laws, and I'm glad to know that I'm already doing the right thing.
You got it. You got it. Thank you very much for having me.
Yep. For more on this and other programs, visit a2gov.org/CTN. Visit youtube.com/CTN Ann Arbor to see all that we have to offer. And remember to like, subscribe, and ring that notification. Thanks for watching and tune in next time to FYI.